Welcome to Specific Love. Table saws. They're awesome tools to have. Whether you're cutting down your plywood or just trying to rip down some pieces of wood, they're great tools that make it really fast and easy. Now, there is a dangerous situation to most table saws. You gotta be very careful with kickback and just the way you're cutting wood. For example, if I wanted to cut a dado in the end of this piece of 2x4, it'd be extremely dangerous unless I had a jig to hold everything nice and still and straight. So for this video, I'm going to create a vertical cutting jig so I can cut dados like this and other cuts similar. Some people like to refer to it as a tenon cutting jig. In any case, let's get this started. Now for this project, we're going to be using some 1/2" MDF for a couple reasons. One, it's a lot cheaper than plywood right now. And two, as long as you can keep it dry, it's known to stay nice and straight. Now for this jig, I want the blade side to be a little bit thicker than the other, so I've actually cut out 2 pieces at 12 by 12, and I'm going to glue these together. Now while this is drying, I'm going to be cutting out the rest. Next up, we need to figure out the width of our fence here, and that comes to about 4 1/32. We're actually going to cut it just a hair bigger because I'd rather it be a little bit bigger and trim it down than make it too short. Now I end up cutting down 2 pieces of the MDF that'll be riding over the fence, and that's because I want to have a handle between the two so I can have a little bit more control. And to make the handle, I'm going to be using a 1" dowel. Then I'm going to use a Forstner bit to cut a hole in the top and the bottom, and it'll sit right about there. Now I've clamped this down in my drill press, and I have both boards in an exact alignment, and that way when I drill with the Forstner bit, I'm going to go all the way through the first one and only about halfway through the second one. Now we can position this board in place, put the dowel on the bottom, and get this top one is about as even as we can just hand hold it. Then we can take the measure tape and figure out exactly how high we need this second board on the back, which is about 8 inches. Now that I've given these some time to dry, let's take this apart and square up the edges. Now before I assemble this, I actually want to put a couple grooves in this with a 14-degree dovetail router bit. And that should allow me to use some of these new dovetail clamps to hold all the wood together. Now it's almost time for assembly, and when it is assembled, these grooves will be facing towards the blade on the left side of your fence. But temporarily, I'm going to put it on the right side in the same direction. And that will allow me to now put this plate here that sits on top of the fence right in the exact position. I can draw a pencil mark, and that way I'll know exactly where to put the screws, and I can pre-drill everything. Now once we assemble all this together, there's a good chance that it's going to be really tight on the fence. So to help prevent that, we're going to take 2 pieces of tape, or just masking tape, and I put them on the inner edge of this board so that once everything is nice and cinched together, we can then remove this tape, and it should allow everything to move nice and smooth. Alright, just as I predicted here, this is really tight, so let's take this tape off. Okay. Much better. Probably use just a little bit of wax to do even better, but there you go. Now that the frame is screwed together, we're going to add a little stopper board right here at the back. Now we're going to make sure we don't cover up these screws, and it's a good idea to probably lift this about 2 or so inches off of the table. Now when we are securing it, we're just going to use some screws, and we want to make sure it's exactly 90 degrees off of this table so that everything is not off a little bit when you're cutting. And one last thing before you can use it is to make sure we glue this handle in place. Now I've given a little bit of time for the glue to dry, and it's time for a test run. Now this first test cut turned out amazing. I can see how this simple jig right here is gonna just, well, make some future furniture ideas really come to life. I hope you get a chance to build one of these, and if you do like this project, make sure you share it with a friend so they can get a chance to build one too. Otherwise, get out of your shop, have fun building. These two pieces of, wow, I can't talk. Allow me to use some of these new clamps to holy. Alright. Alright. I don't like that.